Rain hammered the streets of Chicago like a warning nobody wanted to hear. Neon reflections trembled across puddles outside the Jefferson Market parking garage. Downtown traffic crawled beneath heavy gray clouds while commuters rushed home, desperate to escape another brutal November evening. Marcus Whitaker stepped from his black Lincoln Navigator with careful movements. At 58, he carried himself with quiet discipline. His silver-streaked beard was trimmed perfectly. His dark wool overcoat concealed the exhaustion buried beneath years of courtroom battles. Few people recognized him outside legal circles, which suited him perfectly. For 12 years, Marcus served as an associate justice on the Illinois Supreme Court. Tomorrow morning, he would finalize a ruling capable of destroying political careers across the state. The decision targeted police misconduct protections that shielded abusive officers from civil accountability. Powerful people already feared him. Tonight, however, Marcus only wanted groceries and silence. Inside the market, warm jazz drifted softly through overhead speakers. Holiday decorations hung beside discount signs. Ordinary Americans pushed shopping carts without noticing the man whose legal opinions shaped thousands of lives. Marcus checked his phone near the produce section. A message appeared from his wife. "Take your time. I found your favorite bourbon online." He smiled faintly. Elaine Whitaker understood exhaustion better than anyone. Before retirement, she spent 26 years as an FBI crisis negotiator. She had survived hostage situations in Miami, cartel investigations near Houston, and corruption probes inside Chicago itself. Together, they built a marriage founded upon patience, discipline, and silence. Marcus grabbed oranges, coffee beans, and fresh bread before heading toward checkout. Outside, another storm front rolled across Lake Michigan. Wind pushed sharp rain through the parking structure entrance. Several shoppers hurried toward elevators while security cameras blinked silently above them. Officer Ryan Mercer watched from inside his patrol cruiser. Ryan was 39 years old and deeply admired inside the department. 3 commendations, 2 promotions, local television interviews praising his instincts. He believed absolutely in his own judgment. That belief had become dangerous. His patrol route covered wealthy sections bordering older neighborhoods near Southside Chicago. Ryan often described himself as proactive policing. Others quietly called him aggressive. Then he noticed the Navigator, luxury SUV, expensive wheels, tinted windows, and behind the wheel sat an older black man wearing a tailored coat. Ryan narrowed his eyes. Something about the image irritated him immediately. He watched Marcus place groceries carefully inside the rear cargo area. Calm movements. No nervous behavior, no signs of criminal activity. Still, Ryan kept staring. His partner, Officer Kevin Doyle, glanced over from the passenger seat. "What is it?" Ryan nodded toward the vehicle. "That SUV costs more than my annual salary." Kevin shrugged. "Maybe he owns it." Ryan smirked. "Yeah, sure he does." He typed the license plate into the computer. The system returned immediately. Registered owner, Marcus A. Whitaker. Address, Gold Coast District, Chicago. No warrants. No alerts, perfectly clean. Ryan frowned harder. "Run it again," he muttered. Kevin looked uncomfortable. "Why?" "Because people fake registrations every day." The second search returned identical information. Clean. Legitimate. Ryan stared through the rain-streaked windshield. His instincts refused to let it go. Marcus entered the driver's seat and closed the door gently. He adjusted his glasses and checked a legal draft on his phone. Paragraph 48 remained unfinished. When authority becomes humiliation, justice becomes impossible. He reread the sentence twice, then flashing blue lights illuminated the garage walls. Marcus looked up slowly. The patrol cruiser stopped directly behind his SUV. Ryan exited first. Heavy boots echoed through the garage. Rainwater dripped from his uniform sleeves while his hand rested casually near his holster. Marcus lowered the window halfway. "Good evening, officer." Ryan ignored the greeting. "License and registration." Marcus remained calm. "Certainly. May I ask the reason for the stop?" Ryan leaned closer toward the window. "Step out of the vehicle first." Marcus paused. Years of legal experience sharpened his instincts immediately. This was wrong. "Officer," Marcus said carefully, I will cooperate fully. I simply asked why I was stopped. Ryan's expression hardened. You people always have questions before following instructions. Kevin Doyle shifted uncomfortably near the cruiser. Marcus opened the door slowly. Cold wind rushed inside. He stepped onto the wet concrete with both hands visible. Nearby shoppers slowed their pace. Phones already started appearing. Ryan pointed toward the SUV. Hands on the vehicle. Marcus complied silently. Rain soaked through his coat while his palms touched freezing metal. Ryan circled behind him. This your car? Marcus answered evenly. Yes. Ryan laughed softly. Interesting. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. He had heard that tone before. Not inside courtrooms, outside them, on highways, in parking lots, in America. Ryan grabbed Marcus roughly by the wrist. You know how many stolen luxury vehicles move through this district every month? Marcus winced slightly. Officer, the registration confirms ownership. Fake paperwork exists. Kevin finally spoke. Ryan, dispatch already cleared the plate. Ryan ignored him completely. A teenage boy nearby began recording openly. Yo, he whispered excitedly, this dude getting busted. Several strangers stopped walking. Nobody questioned the officer. Nobody questioned why a successful black man inside a luxury vehicle automatically looked suspicious. Marcus felt cold rain slide down his face. Then Ryan shoved him hard against the SUV. The groceries crashed onto wet concrete. Oranges rolled across the garage floor. And somewhere deep inside Marcus Whitaker, something shifted forever. The handcuffs clicked shut beneath the echoing garage lights. Marcus Whitaker did not resist. His breathing remained controlled despite sharp pain shooting through his wrists. Rainwater dripped from his beard, while shoppers gathered nearby like spectators watching free entertainment. Nobody stepped forward. Nobody asked questions. Officer Ryan Mercer tightened the cuffs deliberately. Too tight, Marcus noticed immediately. Violation number 6. His legal mind catalogued every detail automatically. Years on the Illinois Supreme Court trained him to observe behavior beneath emotion. Most people saw anger during injustice. Marcus saw patterns. Ryan pushed him toward the patrol cruiser. Move. Marcus steadied himself carefully. Officer, I am fully cooperating. Then stop talking. The teenager filming laughed loudly. Man, this is crazy. Comments already flooded his live stream. Probably stole it. Cops know what they're doing. Why rich people always acting innocent? Marcus glanced toward the phones surrounding him. America no longer needed witnesses. It needed audiences. Officer Kevin Doyle walked beside Ryan with visible discomfort. Maybe we should verify identification first, Kevin muttered quietly. Ryan slammed the cruiser door open. I already know enough. Marcus lowered himself into the back seat. The plastic bench smelled like bleach and stale coffee. Rain hammered against the roof, while blue emergency lights painted distorted reflections across nearby concrete pillars. Ryan shut the door aggressively. Inside the vehicle, Marcus closed his eyes briefly. He remembered another rainy night 31 years earlier. Detroit, a younger Marcus, standing beside his father's rusted Buick while police searched the trunk without explanation. His father had remained calm that night too. Never give angry people your dignity, his father once said. Marcus carried those words his entire life. Outside the cruiser, Kevin lowered his voice. Ryan, dispatch confirmed ownership twice. Ryan shrugged casually. Gut instinct matters. Gut instinct isn't probable cause. Ryan stared hard at his partner. You questioning me? Kevin hesitated. That hesitation said everything. Police culture punished doubt more harshly than misconduct. Kevin stepped back silently. Ryan smirked and returned to the cruiser. Inside Jefferson Market, Elaine Whitaker stood near checkout, comparing wine labels when her phone vibrated. Location shared by Marcus. Her expression changed immediately. Marcus never shared locations casually, only emergencies. Years inside the FBI sharpened instincts ordinary people ignored. Danger announced itself quietly. Elaine abandoned her shopping basket and moved toward the entrance. Not running, never running. Panic destroyed judgment. Outside, cold rain hit her face instantly. Then she saw the cruiser, saw Marcus inside, saw officers standing beside her husband's SUV. Her stomach tightened hard, but her training took control before emotion could spread. Document first, react second. Elaine pulled out her phone and activated video recording. The camera captured everything. License plate, badge numbers, Ryan Mercer laughing beside the cruiser, bystanders watching silently. She walked closer with measured steps. Ryan noticed her approaching. "Ma'am, stay back." Elaine stopped several feet away. "Why is my husband handcuffed?" Ryan folded his arms. "Ongoing investigation." Into what? Possible vehicle theft. Elaine stared at him for several silent seconds, then she looked toward Marcus. Their eyes met through rain-covered glass. Marcus gave one small shake of his head. "Not yet. Do not reveal anything yet." Elaine understood immediately. She turned the phone camera toward Ryan. "State your probable cause clearly for the recording." Ryan frowned. "Who exactly are you?" "A concerned citizen documenting public police activity." Kevin Doyle looked increasingly uncomfortable. Ryan stepped closer toward Elaine. "Turn that camera off." Elaine almost smiled. Illinois law allows recording of public officials performing duties in public spaces. Ryan's jaw tightened. "Lady, don't make this harder than necessary." Elaine remained perfectly calm. "Harder for whom?" Inside the cruiser, Marcus watched carefully. Ryan Mercer was beginning to unravel. Arrogant men always did, once challenged publicly. Elaine tapped her screen discreetly. Livestream activated. Her social media following exploded during recent appearances discussing corruption investigations and criminal justice reform. Thousands trusted her calm professionalism. Within 60 seconds, viewers climbed past 12,000. Comments flooded instantly. "What happened? Why is he arrested?" "Record everything." Ryan noticed people nearby raising phones again. His confidence slipped slightly. Kevin spoke carefully. "Ryan, maybe call a supervisor." Ryan ignored him. Instead, he opened the cruiser door abruptly. "Last chance," he snapped toward Marcus. "Tell the truth about the vehicle." Marcus stepped partially from the cruiser. Rainwater soaked his dress shirt beneath the coat. His voice stayed calm. "The truth already exists, officer." Ryan grabbed his shoulder aggressively. "Don't play games with me." Elaine's camera captured everything clearly. Marcus looked directly into Ryan's eyes. "You still have time to correct this mistake." Ryan laughed bitterly. "Mistake?" Then he shoved Marcus back against the cruiser. Hard. The crowd gasped softly. Kevin stepped forward instantly. "Ryan, enough." Ryan turned furiously. "Stay out of this." But something had already changed. Elaine glanced at her live stream numbers. 47,000 viewers, and climbing fast. Then her phone rang. Caller ID. Deputy Director Angela Brooks, Department of Justice. Elaine answered quietly. "Tell me everything," Angela said immediately. Elaine watched Ryan Mercer standing beneath flashing blue lights. For the first time all evening, she felt something colder than fear. Certainty. This officer had just destroyed his own life. He simply did not know it yet. Chicago Police District 7 looked exhausted even from outside. The old brick building sat beneath flickering streetlights while rainwater streamed along cracked sidewalks. Patrol vehicles lined the rear parking area beside overflowing dumpsters and rusted security fences. Inside the cruiser, Marcus Whitaker watched the station approach through smeared glass. He remained calm. But deep beneath that calm lived disappointment older than tonight. At 58 years old, Marcus understood exactly how America functioned when nobody important was watching. Officer Ryan Mercer parked beside the rear entrance and stepped out confidently. His arrogance remained untouched. He still believed this situation belonged entirely under his control. Kevin Doyle exited more slowly. "Ryan," he said quietly, "the live stream is spreading online." Ryan scoffed. "People forget internet drama tomorrow morning." Kevin looked toward Marcus inside the cruiser. "What if this becomes something bigger?" Ryan slammed the rear door open. "Then Internal Affairs writes paperwork, and everybody moves on." Marcus stepped carefully onto wet pavement. Cold wind pushed rain against his face, while nearby reporters began arriving unexpectedly. Someone already tipped local media. Elaine Whitaker followed closely behind while continuing her livestream. Viewer count crossed 130,000. Comments flooded endlessly. Illegal stop. Record badge numbers. Get a lawyer immediately. Ryan pointed toward Elaine. She doesn't come inside. Elaine remained perfectly composed. My husband has legal representation rights. He's not under arrest yet. Marcus finally spoke. Interesting distinction considering the handcuffs. Ryan ignored him. Inside the station, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, like insects trapped behind plastic ceilings. Phones rang constantly, while exhausted officers completed reports beside coffee-stained eggs. Sergeant Harold Bennett glanced upward lazily. What happened now? Ryan removed his wet gloves. Possible stolen luxury vehicle. Suspect resisted cooperation. Marcus said nothing. Sergeant Bennett typed into the booking system casually. Name, Marcus Allen Whitaker. Bennett froze immediately. His fingers stopped moving. The computer screen displayed multiple judicial security alerts automatically attached to Marcus's profile. Illinois Supreme Court Justice, State Judicial Protection Authorization, Restricted Detention Notification, required. Bennett blinked twice. Ryan, he said slowly, who exactly did you arrest? Ryan rolled his eyes. Some guy pretending the SUV belongs to him. Bennett looked directly at Marcus. Recognition spread instantly across his face. Every officer in Illinois law enforcement knew Marcus Whitaker. The judge appeared regularly on national legal programs discussing constitutional rights and police reform. Bennett stood abruptly. Oh my God. Ryan frowned. What? Before Bennett could answer, another voice interrupted. Tell me this is a joke. Captain Leonard Graves descended from the upstairs offices with visible panic. His grey suit hung loosely beneath tired eyes. 28 years in law enforcement taught Graves one painful truth. Bad arrests happened, but arresting a sitting state Supreme Court justice during a livestream catastrophe, that ended careers. Ryan straightened instinctively. Captain, I had probable cause. You had what? Graves stared at him incredulously. Ryan pointed toward Marcus. Suspicious vehicle activity. Marcus finally raised his cuffed hands slightly. Captain, your officer accused me of stealing my own vehicle despite verified registration confirmation. Graves looked horrified. Ryan, please tell me you confirmed identification before detention. Silence. That silence answered everything. Elaine continued recording from near the entrance. Viewers now exceeded 300,000. Someone clipped Ryan's earlier statements online already. Social media spread outrage faster than wildfire. Captain Graves rubbed both temples. Remove the handcuffs immediately. Ryan hesitated. Sir, with respect, we don't know now. The entire front desk area fell silent. Ryan unlocked the cuffs reluctantly. Metal clattered loudly against the booking counter. Marcus rubbed his bruised wrists carefully. Elaine stepped closer and photographed the injuries instantly. Evidence, always evidence. Captain Graves forced an uneasy smile. Justice Whitaker, clearly this situation resulted from misunderstanding. Marcus studied him quietly. A misunderstanding doesn't usually involve racial profiling and unlawful detention. Nobody spoke. The words landed heavily across the station. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. I treated him like any other suspect. Marcus turned slowly toward him. That statement concerns me deeply, officer. Elaine's livestream exploded again. Over 500,000 viewers watched live now. Comments moved too quickly to read. Captain Graves lowered his voice. Justice Whitaker, perhaps we can discuss this privately. Marcus looked around the station carefully. Young officers pretending not to stare. Dispatchers whispering nervously. Veteran cops suddenly fascinated by paperwork. Fear had entered the building. Good. No, Marcus answered calmly. Public actions deserve public conversations. Ryan folded his arms defensively. You're acting like I committed some crime. Then a new voice echoed from the hallway. Actually, he may have committed several. Everyone turned. Detective Allison Reed walked toward the front desk carrying a thick investigation folder beneath one arm. Internal Affairs. Ryan's confidence vanished instantly because he recognized that folder, and because his name was already written across it. Detective Alison Reed moved through the station with controlled purpose. Rainwater still glistened across her dark overcoat, while the internal affairs folder remained tucked firmly beneath her arm. Officers quietly stepped aside as she approached the booking desk. Nobody liked internal affairs, especially guilty people. Ryan Mercer forced a laugh. "This is unnecessary." Alison ignored him completely. Instead, she looked toward Marcus Whitaker. "Justice Whitaker, I'm Detective Alison Reed, Internal Affairs Division." Marcus nodded once. "Detective." Her eyes shifted briefly toward the bruises around his wrists. Something cold hardened behind her expression. She had investigated police abuse cases for nearly 9 years. Most victims looked frightened, exhausted, defeated. Marcus Whitaker looked observant. That unsettled Ryan immediately. Captain Graves cleared his throat nervously. "Detective Reed, perhaps we should discuss this privately upstairs." "No," Alison answered flatly. "We discuss misconduct where misconduct occurred." Several officers nearby lowered their heads. Ryan folded his arms tighter. "You're making assumptions before hearing my side." Alison finally turned toward him. "Your side already exists on 6 separate live streams." Silence spread again. Elaine Whitaker continued filming quietly from beside Marcus. Live stream viewers passed 700,000. National legal commentators had already begun reposting clips. One headline spread rapidly online. "Illinois Supreme Court Justice detained after racial profiling, stop." Ryan's face lost color. Alison opened the folder slowly. Inside rested photographs, disciplinary summaries, witness interviews, and complaint records. Years of buried behavior. "Officer Mercer," Alison said calmly, "do you recognize the names Terrence Boyd, Lionel Harris, Marcus Bell, or Andre Fletcher?" Ryan stiffened. "What does this have to do with tonight?" "Answer the question." "Those complaints were cleared." Alison nodded slowly. "Yes, cleared despite identical allegations." Captain Graves looked increasingly trapped. "Detective Reed," he interrupted carefully, "this isn't the appropriate moment." "Actually," Marcus said quietly, "this appears exactly the appropriate moment." Elaine almost smiled. Ryan looked between them with rising panic. "You're turning this political." Marcus met his eyes evenly. "No, officer. Your behavior turned it constitutional." The station became painfully quiet. Even dispatch radios seemed softer suddenly. Alison removed several printed photographs from the folder. Young black men, bruised wrists, damaged vehicles, settlement documents. 8 formal complaints in 30 months, Alison continued. Every incident involved minority drivers operating expensive vehicles in affluent neighborhoods. Ryan pointed angrily. "Those stops were legitimate. Were they?" Alison slid another document across the counter. Body camera deactivation logs. Ryan recognized them instantly. His stomach dropped. "Your camera disconnected during 4 previous stops," Alison said. "Tonight makes 5. Captain Graves looked horrified. "Ryan, tell me that's inaccurate." Ryan swallowed hard. "Equipment malfunctions happen. 5 times during minority detentions. Nobody defended him. Not even Kevin Doyle." The younger officer stood near the hallway looking pale with guilt. Marcus noticed immediately. Fear lived differently inside good people. Kevin still possessed a conscience. Ryan no longer did. Elaine checked her phone quietly. 1.2 million viewers. Department of Justice representatives now watched live remotely. So did several national news networks. Captain Graves understood that too. His career calculations changed visibly by the second. Protect Ryan, or survive Ryan. Alison closed the folder carefully. "Officer Mercer, surrender your firearm temporarily pending review." Ryan stared at her in disbelief. "You're suspending me because some politician got embarrassed?" Marcus spoke softly. "I was humiliated, not embarrassed. There is a difference." Ryan pointed toward him aggressively. "You could have told me who you were from the beginning." Marcus took one slow step forward. The entire station watched. "And if I were a schoolteacher?" Marcus asked quietly. Ryan opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Marcus continued, "If I drove trucks for a living, if I worked construction, if I cleaned office buildings downtown, would I deserve less dignity then?" Ryan looked away first. That moment mattered. Elaine captured everything. Millions watched an officer finally lose control of the narrative. Captain Graves exhaled heavily. "Ryan, give Detective Reed your badge and weapon." Ryan's breathing sharpened. 9 years, awards, promotions, television interviews, everything suddenly balanced on one terrible evening. "Captain, now." Slowly, Ryan unclipped his badge. The metal rested briefly inside his shaking hand. Identity reduced to an object. He placed it onto the booking counter. Then the firearm. Several officers looked away awkwardly. Nobody wanted to witness a downfall this publicly. But nobody intervened either. That silence said almost as much as the arrest itself. Allison secured the weapon carefully. "Officer Ryan Mercer, you are placed on immediate administrative leave, pending investigation into unlawful detention, civil rights violations, excessive force, and procedural misconduct." Ryan stared blankly. His voice cracked slightly. "This can't be happening." Marcus answered quietly. "It already did." Outside the station, thunder rolled across downtown Chicago. Then another police cruiser arrived abruptly. 2 men in dark federal overcoats stepped out beneath the rain. Elaine recognized them immediately. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, and suddenly everyone inside the station understood. This situation was no longer local anymore. Federal agents entered District 7 without speaking. Rainwater dripped from their overcoats onto the station floor, while conversations died instantly around them. The taller man displayed credentials briefly. Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division. Captain Leonard Graves felt his stomach collapse. This was no longer internal damage control. This was federal exposure. Agent Malcolm Pierce approached calmly. Mid-50s, former military posture. Cold gray eyes trained by decades investigating institutional corruption. Beside him walked Agent Sophia Ramirez, carrying a black evidence case. She looked directly toward Marcus Whitaker. "Justice Whitaker," she said professionally, "Washington requested immediate assessment after reviewing the livestream footage." Ryan Mercer stared blankly. "Washington?" Nobody answered him. Elaine Whitaker lowered her phone slightly. Livestream viewers had crossed 2 million. Cable news networks now replayed clips continuously. Ryan's statement echoed across social media. "A black man driving a vehicle like this raises suspicion." The sentence spread nationally within hours. Marcus studied the federal agents carefully. "Agent Pierce," he said, recognizing him, "we met during the Cincinnati Judicial Conference 3 years ago." Pierce nodded once. "Under better circumstances." Captain Graves forced a weak smile. "Surely we can resolve this professionally before assumptions spiral further." Agent Ramirez opened her evidence case immediately. "Professional resolution begins with evidence preservation." She removed sealed forms. Effective immediately, all surveillance footage, body camera records, dispatch logs, radio traffic, and officer communications related to tonight's detention fall under federal review authority. Several officers exchanged nervous glances. Ryan's breathing became shallow. Because he remembered something. His body camera. Disabled. Twice. Agent Pierce turned toward him slowly. "Officer Mercer, did you deactivate recording equipment during this detention?" Ryan swallowed. "Temporary equipment malfunction." Agent Ramirez checked a tablet. "Interesting. The system log specifically states manual deactivation." Silence crushed the room. Captain Graves looked physically ill. Elaine resumed filming steadily. Every second mattered now. Marcus finally removed his soaked overcoat carefully and folded it over one arm. Simple movements. Measured movements. The kind belonging to a man completely in control of himself. Ryan hated that calmness more than anything. "You made me look racist," Ryan snapped suddenly. Kevin Doyle closed his eyes briefly. Wrong sentence. Terrible sentence. Marcus looked genuinely saddened. "Officer Mercer," he said softly, "I didn't make you anything." Agent Pierce glanced toward Elaine. "Mrs. Whitaker, approximately how long has your live stream been active?" 1 hour and 14 minutes. Current viewership? Elaine checked quickly. 2.3 million. Nobody moved. Even veteran officers looked stunned and a local police stop had become a national spectacle. Captain Graves attempted one final defense. "Justice Whitaker, Perhaps public escalation isn't necessary. Mistakes happen during patrol work. Marcus turned slowly toward him. Captain, mistakes involve accidents. This involved assumptions. The words landed sharply. Marcus stepped closer toward the booking counter. Your officer saw a black man driving an expensive vehicle and decided ownership itself looked suspicious. No one interrupted. He ignored registration confirmation twice. He refused identification review. He escalated force despite compliance. Then he disabled his body camera. Marcus's voice remained steady. That steadiness frightened people more than yelling ever could. That isn't instinct, Marcus continued. That's conditioning. Ryan looked furious again. You don't know what police deal with every day. Agent Pierce answered before Marcus could. Actually, Officer Mercer, I spent 11 years working narcotics inside Baltimore. He stepped closer. Real policing doesn't require humiliation. Ryan looked away. The walls were closing now, fast. Elaine's phone vibrated repeatedly. Senators, news producers, civil rights attorneys, former FBI colleagues. Everybody wanted statements, but Elaine ignored them all. Her focus stayed entirely on Marcus, because beneath his composure, she recognized something dangerous: disappointment. Marcus rarely became emotional, yet tonight had wounded him deeply. Not because of handcuffs, because none of this surprised him anymore. Agent Ramirez approached Kevin Doyle quietly. Officer Doyle, were you present throughout the detention? Kevin hesitated. Ryan noticed immediately. Fear crossed his face. Police loyalty depended on silence. Kevin understood the cost of breaking it, but he also understood millions were watching, and somewhere beneath fear, conscience still existed. Kevin nodded slowly. Yes. Did Justice Whitaker resist? Kevin looked toward Marcus, then toward Ryan, finally toward the cameras surrounding them. No, Kevin answered quietly. He complied the entire time. Ryan exploded instantly. Kevin, stop, Agent Pierce snapped sharply. Ryan fell silent. Kevin continued nervously. The registration returned valid ownership immediately, twice. Captain Graves shut his eyes. Done. The department's defense had just collapsed publicly. Elaine glanced at livestream comments again. People across America were sharing their own stories now. Traffic stops, humiliations, fear. Entire lives shaped by moments exactly like this one. Marcus saw those comments too, and suddenly he understood something painful. Tonight was no longer about him. It was about everyone who never received cameras, lawyers, or federal attention. Then Agent Ramirez received a message through her earpiece. Her expression changed immediately. She looked directly at Marcus. Justice Whitaker, she said carefully, the governor of Illinois is requesting immediate contact. Marcus exhaled slowly. The storm had officially reached the highest levels now. Governor Elaine Brooks called personally. Not an assistant, not legal counsel. The governor herself. Captain Leonard Graves listened from several feet away, while Marcus Whitaker accepted the phone calmly near the booking desk. Every officer inside District 7 suddenly understood the magnitude of what had happened. This was no longer a disciplinary issue. It was political wildfire. Marcus, Governor Brooks said immediately, are you safe? Physically, yes. The pause that followed carried years of shared understanding. Both had spent decades navigating Illinois politics. Both understood institutions protected themselves first. The footage is everywhere, Brooks continued quietly. Washington called 20 minutes ago. Marcus glanced briefly toward Ryan Mercer. The disgraced officer now sat alone beside the wall beneath fluorescent lights. His confidence had collapsed into pale silence. Good, Marcus answered. Governor Brooks lowered her voice further. State police commanders are already distancing themselves publicly. Chicago leadership will sacrifice Mercer immediately. Marcus looked toward Captain Graves. The captain pretended not to hear. This wasn't only Mercer, Marcus said calmly. Graves stiffened instantly. Governor Brooks understood immediately. How deep? Marcus watched Allison Reed holding her investigation folder, deep enough for internal affairs to build active case files before tonight. Silence. Then the governor sighed heavily. Jesus Christ. Elaine Whitaker continued live streaming nearby. Viewer count reached 3.4 million. Major celebrities had begun reposting clips. Civil rights organizations announced demonstrations already scheduled for tomorrow morning outside police headquarters. The entire nation watched Chicago tonight. Marcus ended the call politely. Then he handed the phone back to Agent Ramirez. Captain Graves stepped forward carefully. Justice Whitaker, perhaps we can discuss an official statement together before media speculation worsens. Marcus looked directly into his eyes. Captain, your department handcuffed me publicly without probable cause. What exactly remains speculative? Nobody breathed. Ryan suddenly stood. This is insane, he snapped. Everybody acts like I'm some monster because I made one traffic stop. Allison Reed turned toward him slowly. 8 complaints aren't one traffic stop. Ryan pointed aggressively. Those complaints were investigated. Buried, Allison corrected. The word echoed sharply across the station. Captain Graves looked furious now. Not at Allison. At exposure. At cameras. At consequences. Ryan noticed too late. The department no longer protected him. It protected itself. Elaine stepped closer beside Marcus. Do you know what bothers me most? She asked quietly. Ryan laughed bitterly. Here comes the lecture. Elaine ignored him. I spent 26 years negotiating with violent criminals, drug traffickers, kidnappers, terror suspects. Her eyes hardened. Most dangerous people know they're dangerous. Ryan's face tightened. What's your point? You thought you were righteous. That sentence cut deeper than yelling ever could. Ryan looked away immediately. Agent Pierce checked his phone. Federal prosecutors are reviewing civil rights charges already, he announced calmly. Ryan froze. Charges? Unlawful detention, rights deprivation under color of authority. Evidence tampering regarding body camera deactivation. Pierce met his eyes coldly. Potentially more. Ryan looked toward Captain Graves desperately. Captain? Graves said nothing. That silence terrified Ryan more than federal agents. Kevin Doyle finally spoke again. His voice shook slightly. Ryan, you should call an attorney. Ryan stared at him in disbelief. You too? Kevin swallowed hard. You ignored procedure. Procedure? Ryan barked. You think streets follow procedure? Marcus answered quietly. The Constitution must. Again, silence fell. Outside, thunder rolled across Chicago. Rain still hammered station windows while protesters slowly gathered beyond police barricades. News helicopters circled overhead now, their lights sweeping across rooftops. Agent Ramirez approached Marcus carefully. Justice Whitaker, several networks request live interviews tonight. Marcus shook his head. No interviews. Elaine glanced toward him curiously. Marcus, not tonight. He looked around the station, young officers watching nervously, civilian clerks pretending not to listen, veterans staring downward in exhausted shame. Marcus understood something important. Humiliation changed nobody permanently. Truth did. I don't want spectacle, he continued softly. I want accountability. Allison Reed nodded quietly. She understood. Marcus walked slowly toward Ryan Mercer. Every camera inside the station followed immediately. Ryan looked defensive again, almost cornered. Marcus stopped directly before him, close enough to see fear finally replacing arrogance. Officer Mercer, Marcus said calmly, when you approached my vehicle tonight, what did you see first? Ryan hesitated. No answer looked safe anymore. Marcus waited patiently. Finally, Ryan muttered quietly, a suspicious situation. Marcus nodded once. No, you saw a black man succeeding somewhere your assumptions believed he didn't belong. Ryan's eyes dropped toward the floor. Marcus continued softly, that belief existed before you met me, before the stop, before the handcuffs. The station remained perfectly silent, and until departments confront that truth honestly, Marcus finished, this country will keep repeating nights like tonight forever. Nobody moved. Then suddenly Agent Pierce's earpiece crackled sharply. His expression darkened instantly. We've got another problem, he announced. Everyone looked toward him. Pierce stared directly at Captain Graves. Somebody inside this station just attempted to delete body camera archives remotely. And immediately every face in the room changed. Nobody spoke after Agent Pierce's announcement. The station suddenly felt smaller, hotter. Every officer understood the meaning immediately. Destroying evidence during a federal civil rights investigation transformed misconduct into conspiracy. Captain Leonard Graves looked stunned. "That's impossible," he whispered. Agent Sofia Ramirez was already moving toward the server office. "Nothing becomes impossible once panic starts," she replied sharply. Two federal agents followed her down the hallway. Ryan Mercer looked terrified now. Not angry, not defensive, terrified. Marcus Whitaker noticed immediately, because guilty people feared exposure more than punishment. Allison Reed turned toward Captain Graves slowly. "Who has administrative archive access?" Graves hesitated. "Wrong answer." "Captain," Allison repeated, "who has access?" "Supervisors, IT administrators, command staff." Agent Pierce narrowed his eyes. "Meaning you." Graves opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Outside, chants from protesters began echoing faintly through rain-covered windows. No justice, no peace. Television helicopters still circled overhead like mechanical vultures. Elaine Whitaker kept live-streaming silently. Viewer count passed 4 million. Millions watched institutions unravel live in real time. Ryan suddenly pointed toward Marcus. "This is because of him." Marcus looked genuinely exhausted. "No, officer. This is because of choices." Ryan paced aggressively beside the booking desk. "Everybody acts perfect after the fact. You think policing wealthy neighborhoods is easy? You think criminals wear signs?" Kevin Doyle finally lost patience. Marcus Whitaker wasn't a criminal. Ryan snapped toward him. "How was I supposed to know?" Kevin stared back quietly. "You were supposed to investigate before humiliating him publicly." Again, silence. Truth often sounded embarrassingly simple. Captain Graves rubbed his face heavily. Years of political maneuvering suddenly collapsed around him. He spent decades protecting statistics, protecting clearance rates, protecting public image. Now cameras exposed everything he buried beneath paperwork. Agent Ramirez returned from the hallway carrying a portable drive. Her expression was grim. Attempted deletion originated from command-level terminal access. Nobody moved. She placed the drive onto the counter. Luckily, backup systems preserved original footage automatically. Ryan closed his eyes. Captain Graves looked physically sick. Agent Pierce stepped directly toward the captain. "Were you attempting evidence destruction, Captain?" "No." Too fast, too nervous. Pierce noticed immediately. Allison noticed too. Marcus simply watched quietly. Captain Graves pointed desperately toward the hallway. "I ordered nobody near those systems." "Then someone disobeyed you," Agent Pierce answered coldly. "Either possibility concerns us deeply." Elaine checked her live stream comments again. Former officers now posted anonymously. Stories, cover-ups, missing footage, altered reports. People were finally speaking. Because cameras changed fear. Marcus walked slowly toward a nearby station window. Rain blurred Chicago into streaks of white and red light beyond the glass. Somewhere downtown, ordinary people continued ordinary evenings. Restaurants, movies, families eating dinner. Yet inside this station, entire careers collapsed by the minute. Marcus suddenly felt tired beyond words, not physically, morally. He spent decades believing legal reforms could slowly improve systems. Tonight reminded him how stubborn injustice remained. Allison approached carefully beside him. "You okay?" Marcus smiled faintly. "No." That honesty surprised her. Marcus continued softly. "I keep thinking about everyone this happened to, before cameras arrived." Allison looked down briefly. "I investigated some of them." "And?" Her expression tightened painfully. "Most complaints disappeared inside administrative review." She exhaled slowly. "Departments protect themselves first." Marcus nodded sadly. "Exactly the problem my ruling addresses." Ryan overheard immediately. "Your ruling?" Marcus turned back toward him. "Tomorrow morning I finalize a state opinion limiting qualified immunity protections for civil rights violations." Ryan's face lost all remaining color. Captain Graves looked horrified again, because suddenly everything made terrible sense. The cameras, the political panic, the federal response. This wasn't merely a judge. This was the judge currently reshaping police accountability law across Illinois. Ryan whispered weakly. "Jesus Christ," Marcus answered quietly. "My title shouldn't matter." Then he stepped closer. "That's the point nobody understands yet." Ryan looked broken now. "If I'd known who you were," Marcus interrupted immediately, "you would have treated me like a human being." The sentence cut through the station like shattered glass. Nobody defended Ryan anymore. Nobody defended the department. Because Marcus Whitaker had exposed the entire moral failure in one simple truth. Human dignity should never depend on social status. Outside the station, protest crowds suddenly erupted louder. A news alert flashed across Elaine's phone simultaneously. Breaking. Illinois Attorney General announces emergency statewide review of police misconduct cases connected to Officer Ryan Mercer. Elaine looked toward Marcus slowly. The consequences had become unstoppable now. And somewhere deep inside District 7, another officer quietly walked toward the exit carrying a cardboard evidence box, trying desperately to leave before anyone noticed what was inside. Officer Daniel Hurst almost reached the rear exit before Agent Ramirez noticed him. "Stop right there." Her voice sliced through the station instantly. Every head turned. Hurst froze beside the hallway door, clutching a cardboard archive box tightly against his chest. Sweat covered his forehead despite the cold rain outside. Agent Pierce moved first, fast, controlled. Years of federal investigations taught him exactly how guilt looked. Hurst backed away nervously. "These are old files." "Set the box down," Pierce ordered. Captain Graves stared in disbelief. "Daniel, what are you doing?" Hurst avoided eye contact. Wrong move again. Agent Ramirez stepped forward carefully. "Officer, place the box on the floor now." Finally, Hurst complied. The cardboard hit tile heavily. Folders spilled partially across the station floor. Photographs, complaint forms, disciplinary notices, settlement agreements. Allison Reed walked closer slowly. Then her expression changed. Recognition. "These are my missing files," she whispered. The station fell silent again, because everybody understood immediately. Evidence had not disappeared accidentally. Someone removed it deliberately. For years, Elaine Whitaker's livestream captured every second. Viewer count crossed 5 million. The nation watched institutional corruption physically spill across police station floors. Captain Graves looked shattered. "Daniel," he asked weakly, "tell me this isn't what it looks like." Hurst finally exploded. "You told us to protect the department." Nobody breathed. The words hung like smoke. Ryan Mercer looked horrified. Graves stepped backward. "I never ordered evidence destruction." Hurst laughed bitterly. "You never had to." That sentence hit harder than shouting because it revealed culture, unspoken expectations, silent protections, the machinery beneath official policy. Marcus Whitaker watched carefully. This mattered more than his own arrest now. The truth was surfacing publicly. Not isolated misconduct, systemic corruption. Agent Pierce opened one recovered file slowly. Terrence Boyd, black male, age 22, unlawful detention complaint, broken wrist during traffic stop, officer involved, Ryan Mercer, disposition, insufficient evidence. Pierce opened another. Andre Fletcher, business owner, luxury vehicle stop, racial profiling allegation, case dismissed. Another, Marcus Bell, detained outside suburban bank. Body camera unavailable, no disciplinary action. Agent Ramirez looked toward Graves coldly. "How many investigations vanished this way?" Graves looked old suddenly, older than his years. "I don't know anymore," he admitted quietly. That honesty finally arrived too late. Ryan Mercer sank slowly into a nearby chair. Everything around him collapsed now. Not just career, identity. For years, he believed awards proved righteousness. Now he understood something terrifying. Systems rewarded results, not morality. Kevin Doyle stared toward the recovered files silently. "I knew complaints disappeared," he admitted softly. "I just told myself command staff handled them properly." Marcus looked toward him. "That's how institutions survive wrongdoing," he said quietly. "Good people convince themselves silence is professionalism." Kevin lowered his eyes. The truth hurt because it was deserved. Outside the station, protesters filled entire sidewalks now, rain-soaked signs demanding accountability. Television crews broadcast live beneath floodlights, helicopters circled endlessly overhead. Chicago felt electrified. Elaine finally ended her live stream briefly. 5 million viewers disconnected reluctantly. But the footage already lived everywhere online, impossible to erase, impossible to bury. She approached Marcus quietly. "You need rest." Marcus smiled faintly. "The city probably disagrees." Elaine touched his bruised wrist gently. For the first time all night, exhaustion reached his eyes visibly. Not weakness, weariness, the burden of understanding exactly how fragile justice remained. Agent Pierce approached them carefully. "Justice Whitaker, federal prosecutors request formal statements tomorrow morning." Marcus nodded. "Of course." Pierce hesitated briefly. "For what it's worth, your restraint tonight mattered." Marcus looked toward Ryan Mercer. The disgraced officer now sat motionless beneath station lights while cameras recorded his collapse from every angle. "Restraint isn't forgiveness," Marcus answered softly. Pierce understood immediately. Across the room, Allison Reed organized recovered files methodically. Years of frustration sharpened her focus now. She finally possessed proof. Not rumors, not whispers. Evidence. Captain Graves approached Marcus slowly, his voice barely held together. "Justice Whitaker, I failed this department." Marcus studied him quietly. "No, Captain, you failed the public." Again, nobody interrupted, because no honest response existed. Then suddenly Agent Ramirez received another alert through her earpiece. Her expression darkened immediately. "We've got developing situation downtown," she announced. Everyone looked up. Protesters just blocked Lakeshore Drive after another video surfaced online. Elaine frowned. "Another video?" Ramirez turned her tablet screen outward. Security footage from Jefferson Market parking garage played silently. Clear angle, clear audio. Officer Ryan Mercer saying the words again. "A black man driving this kind of vehicle doesn't belong here." The clip already carried 12 million views, and suddenly everyone inside District 7 understood. Tonight had become larger than Chicago itself. Chicago did not sleep that night. Rain continued falling across crowded intersections, while protesters filled downtown streets beneath flashing emergency lights. Helicopters thundered overhead. National news anchors repeated the same footage endlessly. "A black man driving this kind of vehicle doesn't belong here." The sentence became a symbol overnight, not because it shocked America, because millions recognized it instantly. Inside District 7, exhaustion settled heavily over everyone. Coffee machines emptied repeatedly. Phones rang without pause. Lawyers arrived carrying briefcases, while union representatives whispered urgently beside conference rooms. Ryan Mercer sat alone near processing desks. No badge, no weapon, no authority, just a frightened man wearing a wrinkled police uniform. For the first time in years, nobody treated him like a hero. Marcus Whitaker watched quietly from across the station. He almost pitied him. Almost. Elaine returned from speaking briefly with federal attorneys outside. The Attorney General scheduled a press conference for morning, she told Marcus softly. Marcus nodded. "About the investigation? About statewide reform?" Those words carried enormous weight. One arrest, one live stream, now entire systems faced scrutiny. Agent Pierce approached again, holding several printed statements. "Justice Whitaker, prosecutors request signatures confirming evidence preservation chain." Marcus reviewed the documents carefully. Even now his legal instincts remained sharp. Every word mattered. Every signature shaped history. While he signed quietly, Allison Reed stepped toward Captain Graves one final time. "Federal investigators will want complete cooperation," she said. Graves looked defeated. "I know." "Do you?" The captain rubbed trembling hands together. "You think I built this intentionally?" he asked quietly. Allison stared at him. "I think you protected reputations instead of truth." Graves lowered his eyes, because that accusation was accurate. Years earlier, complaints looked inconvenient, temporary, manageable. Now they looked criminal. Kevin Doyle sat nearby listening silently. His entire understanding of policing felt unstable tonight. He joined the academy believing service meant protection. But inside this station, protection often meant shielding colleagues from accountability. Marcus noticed Kevin staring toward the floor. "Officer Doyle," he said calmly. Kevin looked up immediately. "Sir, you spoke honestly tonight. That mattered." Kevin swallowed hard. "I should have spoken sooner." Marcus nodded slowly. "Most people should." The sentence lingered painfully. Outside, chants continued beneath cold Chicago rain. News vans lined entire blocks now. Protesters carried signs demanding justice for names most Americans never heard before tonight. Terrence Boyd, Andre Fletcher, Marcus Bell, forgotten complaints finally receiving public attention. Elaine checked social media again. Another trend emerged nationally, people sharing personal stories under one phrase. Someone was watching. Traffic stops, harassment, fear, humiliation. Millions understood exactly why Marcus stayed silent about his identity initially. Because ordinary citizens never received special protection. Marcus walked slowly toward Ryan Mercer. Again, cameras followed. Ryan looked exhausted beyond recognition now. His eyes were red, his confidence gone entirely. "Justice Whitaker," he said weakly, "I never wanted this." Marcus studied him carefully. "Wanted what?" Ryan gestured helplessly around the station. "All this," Marcus answered quietly. "But you wanted power." Ryan said nothing. Marcus continued, "And power without accountability eventually becomes abuse." Ryan finally looked up. For the first time all evening, genuine emotion appeared, not anger, regret. "I thought I was protecting neighborhoods," he whispered. Marcus nodded sadly. That's what prejudice sounds like inside people's heads. Those words hit harder than accusation, because Marcus spoke without hatred. Only truth. Ryan's shoulders collapsed completely. Nearby officers looked away awkwardly. Nobody wanted to witness a man confronting himself publicly. Agent Ramirez approached quickly from the entrance. "Justice Whitaker," she announced, "your ruling leaked online." Marcus frowned slightly. "Impossible." She handed him a tablet. Draft excerpts filled the screen. "Qualified immunity cannot shield willful misconduct where constitutional protections are knowingly violated." Public reaction exploded already. Legal analysts called it historic. Police unions called it catastrophic. Civil rights groups called it overdue. Elaine looked toward Marcus carefully. "This changes everything." Marcus stared at the ruling silently. Maybe systems would resist again. America excelled at symbolic outrage. Real change demanded something harder. Consistency. Sacrifice. Memory. Outside the station, dawn slowly approached through storm clouds. Chicago's skyline glowed faintly beyond rain and helicopters. A new day prepared itself quietly. But inside District 7, nobody felt unchanged anymore. Then Agent Pierce received one final update through his earpiece. He looked directly toward Ryan Mercer. "Federal prosecutors approved immediate arrest authorization," he announced. The station froze. Ryan Mercer closed his eyes slowly, because now he finally understood exactly how Marcus Whitaker felt in handcuffs. Federal agents approached Ryan Mercer slowly. Nobody inside District 7 moved. Nobody spoke. The same station that once protected him now watched silently while consequences arrived wearing government badges. Agent Malcolm Pierce removed a pair of handcuffs from his belt. Cold steel reflected beneath fluorescent lights. Ryan stared at them blankly. Hours earlier, he used identical cuffs on Marcus Whitaker without hesitation. Now his breathing became shallow just looking at them. "Officer Ryan Mercer," Pierce said formally, "you are under federal arrest for civil rights violations. Unlawful detention under color of authority, evidence tampering, and conspiracy to obstruct investigation." Ryan looked toward Captain Leonard Graves desperately. Graves lowered his eyes. No rescue was coming. Not from the department, not from unions, not from anyone. Ryan finally whispered weakly, "I was doing my job." Marcus Whitaker answered quietly from across the room. "No, you were protecting your assumptions." The words settled heavily across the station. Agent Pierce secured the handcuffs carefully, not aggressively, not cruelly, professional. Marcus noticed immediately. Real authority never required humiliation. Ryan winced as the metal tightened around his wrists. For the first time all night, genuine fear crossed his face fully, because now he understood something every civilian already knew. Handcuffs changed everything. Elaine Whitaker watched silently beside Marcus. 5 million people had witnessed the beginning of this story. Millions more would watch its ending by sunrise. Outside District 7, reporters exploded into motion once federal agents escorted Ryan Mercer through the station entrance. Camera flashes erupted across rain-soaked sidewalks. Protesters fell strangely silent for one brief moment, because seeing accountability happen publicly felt unfamiliar, almost unreal. Ryan lowered his head instinctively while agents guided him toward an unmarked federal vehicle. Hours earlier, Marcus walked that same path surrounded by cameras. But Ryan noticed something different now. Nobody laughed, nobody filmed for entertainment, nobody treated his humiliation like spectacle. Marcus stepped outside beneath the cold Chicago dawn. Rain finally stopped. Gray clouds drifted slowly above skyscrapers while exhausted protesters stood quietly behind barricades. Some recognized him immediately. Others simply watched silently. Marcus looked across the crowd carefully. Black faces, white faces, young students, veterans, parents holding signs beside children. A city trying to understand itself. Elaine squeezed his hand gently. "You okay?" Marcus exhaled slowly. No. His honesty no longer surprised her. Marcus looked toward the federal vehicle carrying Ryan Mercer away. "This won't fix everything," he said quietly. Elaine nodded. "I know. One arrest doesn't erase generations." He glanced toward protesters holding phones and signs. "But maybe it forces people to stop pretending the problem isn't real." News cameras gathered closer immediately. Marcus understood the moment mattered. Not politically, morally. He stepped toward the microphones. The entire crowd quieted. Millions watched live again online. Marcus Whitaker spoke calmly. Tonight was never about one officer alone. The city listened. It was about a system teaching people that suspicion belongs naturally beside black skin, and success cannot exist without criminal explanation. Nobody interrupted. Officer Mercer asked why someone like me drove a luxury vehicle. Marcus paused briefly. The most painful part wasn't hearing the question. His voice softened. It was realizing how normal the question sounded to everyone around him. Several protesters lowered their heads. Marcus continued. "I could have announced my title immediately. I could have ended the detention within seconds, but millions of Americans don't carry Supreme Court credentials in their pockets." Elaine watched him proudly. Marcus looked directly into the cameras. Justice should not depend upon status. Dignity should not require explanation. Constitutional rights should not become privileges reserved for people with influence. The silence afterward felt enormous. Even helicopters overhead seemed distant suddenly. Then Marcus smiled faintly. Tired. Human. "Tomorrow morning," he continued, "the Illinois Supreme Court will release a ruling expanding accountability for constitutional violations committed under official authority." Reporters exchanged frantic glances. Historic confirmation. Marcus raised one bruised wrist slowly. The red marks remained visible beneath dawn light. "These bruises will heal," he said quietly. "What concerns me are the invisible wounds carried by people nobody ever believed." A young reporter near the front lowered her camera. Tears filled her eyes unexpectedly. Marcus noticed. So did millions watching live. The storm clouds above Chicago finally began breaking apart. Sunlight touched the skyline slowly. For the first time all night, the city looked almost peaceful. Elaine stepped beside her husband. Together they faced cameras, protesters, police officers, and a nation suddenly forced into uncomfortable reflection. Marcus looked toward District 7 one final time, a building still standing, but no longer hiding. Then he turned back toward the crowd. "The law only matters when courage exists beside it," he said softly. "Otherwise, justice becomes theater." Nobody clapped, nobody shouted, people simply listened. And perhaps for the first time in a very long while, America listened honestly. Marcus took Elaine's hand. The cameras continued recording while they walked slowly toward their vehicle beneath the clearing sky. Not victorious, not triumphant, just determined. Because real change never arrived through one speech or one arrest. It arrived through memory, through pressure, through ordinary people refusing silence repeatedly. Somewhere nearby, another young black driver checked his mirrors nervously while passing a police cruiser. But this morning felt slightly different. Not safer, not fixed, just watched. And sometimes being watched changes behavior before morality ever does. Marcus opened the passenger door for Elaine carefully. She smiled softly. Ready to go home? He looked once more toward the city waking beneath cold morning light. Not yet, he answered quietly. There's still work to do. Now subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and share this video.